DraftSociety.com presents a Premier League Draft Fantasy Podcast. Welcome to the Key Pass Collective, your exclusive source for the information, analysis, and advice you need to dominate your fantasy leagues. Come on in. We've been expecting you.
What is going on, draft heads? Welcome back to the Key Pass Collective. I'm Joe Williams. I'll be your host here for this special podcast series that we're going to be doing on the various different positional breakdowns for your draft fantasy game. First, let's remind you the Key Pass Collective is the audio companion to the DraftSociety.com. We are a draft fantasy football podcast and site. And basically, we've got everything you need in order to dominate, absolutely dominate your leagues. During the season, whether it is weekly player projections, whether it is a fixture difficulty tracker, whether it is trade advice, articles on sleepers, waiver wire pickups to get you fully ready to win that matchup, win that game week, we've got that. But preseason, right now, we are focusing on draft prep. We are focusing on getting you ready to have the absolute best draft that you possibly can. So what does this mean? We are making rankings, team previews, cheat sheets, predicted 11s, very, very in-depth analysis articles, talking through the various strategic elements of this draft game. Fixture difficulty tracker for the early series of in-season fixtures, so you can kind of prep yourself depending on if you want to maybe attack the season to really get a good start and then maybe trade off some players. There's a lot of strategy that goes into these things. Anyway, we've got it all there for you. Plus player projections. Articles are dropping daily on our draft kit. It is the largest draft kit that this game, the Draft Premier League game, has ever seen. So if you'd like full access to that, $15. $60 will get you full access to the draft kit and the Inner Circle membership for the entire season. So all of our exclusive, everything that we make, whether it is like the aforementioned trade advice, ghost point tracker, set piece taker trackers, all of it, you get all of that for the entire season. If you don't want to do that, there are some free things on there as well. Check out the draft kit. We've got some top 75 rankings and positional rankings completely for free, as well as a few articles on there that are free as well. Plus, we're free. Anytime you want on Twitter, hit us up, send us a little message, add us on Twitter, start a conversation on there. We're happy to jump in there and give you some advice on drafts or whatever it is. Happy to get on there and just chat this game that we all know and love. Okay. Let's talk about this pod series. So this is going to be a series of 3 episodes. And what we're going to be doing is breaking down, not all of, but many of the 22-23 season draft assets by position. So for each episode in this series, we want to make sure that you've got a handle on the elite assets of that sort of positional breakdown. We want to make sure that you're understanding how to kind of properly rank those really tricky sort of mid-draft assets. You know, whether it's the 4th round, the 6th round, the 8th round, those can be really tricky to try to figure out what the exact value of those players is. So our goal is to kind of help talk you through some of those assets, those mid-round guys that can be, like I said, kind of tricky to really put a value on. So we'll talk through some of those. And then finally, once we get to the late rounds in the draft, it's a lot of times it's a dart throw. So we're going to give you our favorite dart throws, if you will, and then make a case for why maybe they're not just a dart throw, why there's some sneaky value late in the draft with some of these sleepers or potentially hidden gems that we'll hope to point out to you. Finally, before we sign off, we're going to end with some players that we think maybe are being overvalued or overrated or overhyped, if you will. Bottom line is we think the ADP or the average draft position is too high for that particular player, and then we'll go ahead and sign off. We're going to try to keep these ones relatively short, and yeah, the format is going to be the same for all three. So whether it's defenders, midfielders, or forwards, you're going to hear a lot of the same things when the podcast begins, and then we'll attack it the same way. But obviously, the content therein should be valuable, should be gold. So yeah, we'll do top tier, we'll do mid tier, and then we'll do late round drafts. A reminder as you are listening, if you can, to pull up our rankings on thedraftsociety.com so you can follow along and see where we've got different guys ranked. We can try to explain it as much as we can, but it's helpful to have a visual on that. So if you do want to head over to the website, check it out. Aesthetically, we think it's pleasing, but regardless, there's some really good information on there. So pull up our rankings if you can and follow along because we'll be trying to hit these pretty quick. So we just want to make sure that people do have the ability to sort of know where we're at, what we're talking about, and follow along as we go through these. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. This is your midfielder preview. I am joined by Ryan, by Robbie, by Toddy from thedraftsociety.com, and we are here to chat midfielders. Let's not even dwell on it. Let's just jump right in. So we are going to start with your premium assets for midfielders. So for midfielders, there's a lot of these actually. This goes anywhere from consensus rank number 2 all the way down to number 24. And this is a shorter list. I'll read these quick. We've got KDB, Madison, Fernandez, Saka, Mount, St. Max, JWP, Jared Bowen, Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, and Kulusevski. I kind of tried to cut it off before we got to the top 25. So Kulusevski rounds it out at your number 24 overall pick. So, Toddy, let's start with you. Premium assets, are there any that you want to key in on here?
Okay, I'll take the City boys as a whole. For KDB, obviously, there's not much not much new to give. I think
just
the best, just draft him. The best indication of how I value him is that I have been going back and forth in actually putting him number 1. He has missed one game. Since he started in mid-November for City last season, and he was monumental in that run. Obviously, we know he's good. I think there's a lot of concerns about World Cup and whatever, but
yeah.
I think we've seen with Pep that there is this very strange way of valuing players, whereas we know that there is Pep roulette, but we also know that he will run some of his players into the ground. And I think KDB is one that he would run to the ground if it weren't for the injuries. So I'm saying even if he gets some injuries, he will still have 90% quality starts or above 90% quality starts and amazing war. So don't hesitate to take him 1 or 2. I wouldn't hate you if you took him 1. So that's 1. Grealish and Foden make up the City boys in the top tier. And although I've read and reread Luke's article on players we shouldn't sleep on, mentioning Grealish, my main argument to be a bit lower on Grealish than Foden would be that I just think that at some point in the season there will be some off-field issues that will have Pep very, very angry at Grealish, and I see that as less of a case for Foden, and I think Foden will start more games and possibly perform better. I do know that Ryan has been burnt by Foden this season or this past season, and
Yeah.
I get that, and I will, and I do keep that in mind in my evaluation of him. I just think that we've been touting the breakout season for Foden for 2 seasons now, and I think this is the one.
So why not a third?
I love that.
Exactly.
Ever the optimist, my friend. Now, Toddy, I got to ask you real quick. If Grealish falls to you in the third, is that value for you?
Depends on where. If it's
Okay.
the end of the third, that's value. If it's the beginning of the third, I'd still much rather take someone like Odegaard.
Ooh.
Okay. Interesting. What about Sancho?
Probably, but that's close.
Okay. All right. Interesting. I like that. He just for reference, his current ADP, average draft position, listeners, is 28.4. So he is early third.
I'd love him there. I'm interested, Totty. You've got him at 18 in your ranks. Is there anything particularly that's
He's a self-hating Grealish lover. That's why.
I've actually
he's self-loathing there.
I've ranked him in our first consensus ranks high because of Sterling leaving, and I've readjusted that to say 24th.
Okay.
For my second iteration of our ranks, and I think that's like about where I like him. I like Odegaard better at 19. I like Grealish at 24. So for me, Grealish, Silva, Bowen, and Kulusevski are around the same place. Beginning of the second or beginning of the third round. Obviously, I'm taking him there if he is the highest ranked player I have, but he is definitely huge value at the end of the third. That's what I meant.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. I'd agree with that. Okay. I like it. Ryan, how about your thoughts on some premium assets here?
Probably not a surprise, but I wanted to talk about Saka. I've never actually rostered him, so it's interesting.
You got to change that.
This is the year.
I don't know, man. I just don't know. I don't think either of my spots is conducive to getting Saka, but we'll see.
Oh, are you at the beginning of the draft?
2 in one and then 9th in the other.
Maybe the 9th.
If he fell to me at 16, I would absolutely bite your hand off.
No way.
Slap your way to the bank.
Yeah, no way. He's falling to you.
I don't see it, but
okay.
The real reason I wanted to mention him is I've seen him fall a little bit, given some of the movement. So wanted to put in a pitch for him, at least late first round, around 11, 12. He was the 8th top scorer last season, with no actual striker to feed.
Right.
If he starts cooking with Jesus, he could be building on those numbers. He's going to be a really intriguing player to watch this season because he'll either do that, just really click with Jesus and they'll play off each other really well, or he'll be a victim of what I've called Jack Grealish syndrome, in which you stop being the focal point in a worse team, and you just become a really good player in a better team.
Sure.
So think about Grealish at Villa versus Grealish at City. Last season, of course, everything went through Saka. With Jesus and some other upgrades, is that going to continue? Is he still going to be on set pieces and penalties? I tend to think that he still will be such a valuable asset, but those are the only concerns I think that would possibly drop him a little bit further. But yeah, if he starts falling to you in the second round, then yeah, certainly snap him up.
Not to give you any hope whatsoever, but his current ADP, 16.11.
Ooh. Yeah, it was around like 12, and most of the mocks I saw him taking probably in
I'm sure
the
your
late
league
first
is going
round.
to take him sooner than that.
I would assume so, but yeah, you never know. It only takes like one or two weirdos in the
So true.
in the round to just like set everything back a few picks, you know.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, we'll see. But other player I wanted to quickly mention is ASM. I think he's a bit inflated this season. He had a great season last season, but I just don't see how he stays as healthy as he did last season. Plus, I just think it's too early for him. What's his ADP? I think I saw it was like 14 or something.
So this is interesting. We have him ranked at 14. His ADP is actually a much more reasonable 23.5.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Never mind.
Yeah, I think that's more.
That makes about sense.
I think that's more where he's at, isn't it? The last couple of seasons he's not got over 12 points per start, so I don't see how he's going to improve that much more. I know Newcastle will be getting better, so maybe more returns, but there's so many other assets around. I mean, we've got him at 14, I think. I've got personally, I have him at 21, and I think by the end of the second round, that's when you start to look at him.
Yeah.
But before that, there's so many guys that have much bigger potential.
But if you offer me ASM at the end of the second round, I'm absolutely taking you up on that.
Oh yeah, 100%. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm picking 2 in that one league, and if he fell to me at in the late second round there, I'd be like, I'd be okay with it, but I wouldn't be thrilled for I just have a bad feeling about him this season. But
okay.
He might be doing the reverse Grealish as well. Used to be the main guy, but now they're getting better. Everything's riffing off of Jack Grealish.
Clearly, you've been hurt. We understand.
Yeah,
we understand.
No.
Yeah.
Not obsessed at all. Huh?
No, not at all. I've completely gotten through it. The therapist says I'm really making amends.
Totally normal.
So yeah, those are my 2.
Cool. All right. Anyone anything to add on those?
No.
Okay. Robbie, hit us.
Yeah, so I thought I'd bring up someone who's been dividing opinion amongst basically Genie against Ryan and I mostly, but this is Mason Mount. This is Mason Mount, of course. I think Genie's put his arguments forward, against him, if you will. But I think when you look at his stats from last year, he obviously started less, but I mean, I think a lot of that was to do with the amount of games that Chelsea played. I mean, they had as many games as Liverpool. It was like 63 because of the Club World Cup,
right?
Etc. And I think that saw more rotation. But actually, he bumped up his points per start from 13 to 14. So, and part of the reason for that is he's basically being relied upon more as an attacker in that front three. So, he's basically always being more advanced and looking to progress the ball from those positions and also actually receive the ball in more attacking positions. He's doing less of the sort of the dirty work in midfield that he maybe would have done under Lampard. And you can see that actually with his ghost points were down by from 10.8 to 8.3, which is quite a big quite a big drop.
Sure.
But actually his the number of goals and assists he got doubled. And that's reflected in his XG and XA as well. So you sort of feel that he's it makes him a bit more boom and bust, but actually, and one of the things that has been put against him is that he's more of a flat track bully. And I sort of put a little bit of a thread together on Twitter earlier today, just having a look at this. And so against the bottom 6, he had 20.1 points per start. And then against the rest, it was roughly about 10 points per start. So it's not exactly like he's bad against the rest.
Right.
He's just bullying everyone else and getting you. If you get 20 points from him, that's going a long way to win your game week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and who cares who they're against?
Exactly.
Right.
This was
Toddy.
the point I'm making. And it actually, it makes him a more predictable asset in some ways. So that when you're planning your game week, if he's facing a top 6 team or a decent team, don't count on him for a crazy big score, and maybe you're gonna punt a little bit more on a high upside player for your streamer. But there's all these advantages and disadvantages of it. But yeah, I just think next season we might. I think we'll see more starts from him, but maybe he regresses a little bit on his actual points per start output. But I don't think he'll be far removed from where he was this season.
And if I told you could get him at the average draft position of 20, you would bite my hand off.
Yeah,
for sure. And that's where he's at. So something is happening. A narrative is setting in or something. And I'm more than happy. In one of my leagues, I have a draft pick of 3. I don't think he's going to get back to me because these are some really savvy players. But if he did, hey, absolutely.
Oh, God.
Sign me up.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he's got so much upside. It's frightening, really. But yeah, sleep on him at your peril there. But yeah, the other guy I've got is Bowen. So another one I did my West Ham article on. Again, I think a lot of people are sleeping a little bit on him as well. I think we've got him ranked 17, and
ADP's 18.
Yeah, so I think by the time you get into the second round, he starts to become viable between 12 and 18. I think if you get him towards 18, you're looking at some serious value.
Absolutely.
In terms, I think a lot of people, what they're looking at is he's got 12 goals and 17 assists, but actually 7 of those were fantasy assists. So, you're looking at a drop already in terms of the luck factor if he doesn't get that again. I mean, two of them were for winning penalties. So, those are potentially repeatable. But yeah, he outperformed his XG was pretty much on point to what he got, but he outperformed his expected assists. But I think it's like a factor of 1.76 or something, which is massive. So I think you could drop his assist down by like 8 or 9 comfortably, and that would be a sort of a more average season. So that's where all of the issues sort of come from with him, and why he's not going as a top 10 asset, and he's going more towards the 18. But again, I think he starts as many of the games he did last season. He's effectively their talisman now, and everything runs through him. So yeah, I think I would happily take him at the start of the second round. But I don't know what the rest of you boys think about Bowen and the risks there or not.
I had him in my overvalued article.
Yeah.
So yeah, I tend to think that he kind of reached his zenith last season, and I haven't seen him consistently perform yet. I mean, he came in that I think that January window and was great. Then that the season before last, he was miserable, which is why he dropped to round 7 in a lot of drafts last season and was such a revelation this season. So I just think he'll regress a little bit. I mean, because of all those factors that you mentioned, I think he'll still be a good player. I just don't think he'll be an early second round worthy candidate.
Yeah, I think his ghosts aren't really great. I think it's about 7.5.
Really
per 90,
weird.
So
You'd think they would be better given the fact that he's on sets and everything. That's
he scores a lot. Yeah, it's 7.5 ghost points per start.
Yeah, and one of the other interesting things that I looked at was actually the difference between his points per start in the first half and the second half of the season. Because I know some of you guys were sort of quite low on him getting towards the end, and I think it was more, the risk of him not starting and things like that. But so the first half of the season, he had 12.6 points per start, and then the second half was actually 14. So it actually went up, and that was even with the run to the semi-finals of the Europa League. So he had a few less starts, but actually, when I was looking at it, he basically had, it was just higher highs and lower lows, if you know what I mean, in the second half of the season. So if you want someone who's got that upside to get you a win, then he was your man. But I just think considering the amount of games he'll start, there's a lot he's a lot less risky than some of the other guys that are around that. You know, you've got like Darwin Nunez and and people like that, and I'm totally taking Bowen over him.
I would too. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and even when you're getting to, we're just discussing Foden and Grealish, and again, like, how many starts do they get? Like a lot of what drafting is about is not getting the draft wrong, and I don't think you go wrong with Bowen. Whereas Foden or Grealish could frustrate the hell out of you, like you had last season, right?
Yeah, I can certainly attest to that. Yeah.
So you'd rather Bowen than the two City guys?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Do you think Bowen is more or less reliant on goals, assists, clean sheets than Mason Mount?
You mean do we feel
For
like
his
that,
fantasy
or
points.
is this
No,
a test?
It's a test.
This
It's
seems
a
like a
test.
trick.
This is a test.
I would think that he's more goal dependent than Mount, but it's the way you're framing the question. It sounds like no.
How dare you try to look into the what I'm doing and my motives?
It's not what you said; it's how you said it.
I think it would be pretty similar.
48% for Bowen and 45% for Mount.
Yeah.
So honestly, that goes to show that I guess really he's not. I mean, he's not any more goal dependent than a lot of other players, unless you're getting into the likes of people like Christian Eriksen, who's on like every set piece, and guys like Kevin De Bruyne, who's at 39.
Yep, and I think both outperformed their XG plus XA.
Yeah,
quite a bit last year. So there's certainly risk factors there, but I just don't see anyone else that I want that I know will start that many games.
Yeah,
basically.
No, well said. All right, let's dive into the mid-tier players, those mid-round players that we sometimes have trouble figuring out what their exact value is and when's too soon and when's too late to take them. So we're talking players from consensus rank 29, which is Martin Odegaard, and right after him is Eriksen and Sancho. This was in version 1 of our rankings that dropped on the 14th of July. And that's all the way down to 65, which is Damari Gray, and right before him is Gross and Buendia. So there's quite a swath of players here again, but we're not going to go through them all because, listeners can check out our rankings on thedraftsociety.com. But certainly this is a crop of players that we sometimes have trouble figuring out exactly when to take who and where. So let's jump into these guys. Ryan, any mid-tier players you want to kind of give a shout out to?
Yeah, I came into the summer thinking that I was going to label Coutinho overvalued. I just thought that because of his early start coming into the January window, that people would take that and extrapolate it and put him into the second round potentially. But that really hasn't happened. And so I've seen him drift a little bit into kind of early fourth round territory in some mocks, in which case I think he's great value. He's nailed on. Stevie G certainly relies on him. Had my concerns about his fitness, but he actually stayed fairly healthy that half of the season. We'll see if he can put together a full campaign, but we'll have a full preseason with Stevie G and the Villa lads, and I just think they'll get better. And so if he drops to me in the fourth, I'm certainly taking it. So he's somebody I think that people are randomly sleeping on. And again, this is a narrative I didn't think I would be relaying, but that seems to be where we are.
37.7 ADP.
Yeah. So yeah,
He'll
probably get taken
Just
around.
barely.
Yeah. Late third in almost every draft. But yeah, if he drifts a little bit, then certainly pull the trigger.
Snap him.
Other player that intrigues me is Pascal Gross, and I took him I think round 5 last season, and he was maddening, and I ended up trading him out.
Yeah.
But he's slipped quite a bit in the mocks I've seen, down to like 7th ish round. And it's I mean, you wrote the Brighton article. You might have better insights on this than me, but he starts to get decent value around there, given his upside. I mean, he's not going to be your nailed on guy that's set and forget. So you'll have to pull your hair out a few weeks this season when you have Gross. But with the set pieces, and the upside, he can be great value around 7. It's just depends on roster construction and how much you can tolerate in terms of rotation. But he's somebody that intrigues me around that territory.
Yeah, ADP of basically the 8th round, 95.3.
Yeah, and mids become very scarce around that time. So yeah, I think he's good value there.
Yeah, you're looking at him. You're looking at Harry Wilson. You're looking at guys like like you said, mids. It's a lot of defenders in that area. Oh, Ruben Neves is one before him.
Ugh.
So there you go.
Signed a new contract too, so like it's obviously Potter is a fan. I don't know how, given how much he rotated him, but he somehow values him.
He's behind
a fan,
Souček.
fan for 15 games.
Behind Souček.
like we all are.
He's behind Conor Gallagher.
Wow. Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, I think he pissed a lot of people off like me last season.
And now it's time to cash in. All right, I like that. Robbie, how about your mid-tier guys?
Yeah, so I thought I'd highlight again the guys I spoke about in the end of season pod that we did, and that's the Palace boys, Elise and Eze. So yeah, they've, in terms of our ranks, they're in at 46 and 59 respectively. So Elise looking that bit more attractive to everyone in terms of. But actually, Eze at 59 starts to really, I think, really become attractive. You know, now that Gallagher's left, I sort of see that attacking central role for Eze, and in terms of their output, they both got about 9.5 points per start last season. So, and that's what Eze got the season before before he got injured. So, I think what's swaying people over Elise is the fact that he was on set pieces. So, you know, you could have a better floor in that sense. But yeah, no, I see them both as, you know, in that Palace team that's only improving at the moment, and project their start. I mean, I don't think they're going to have a crazy number of starts. Probably not over 30, but maybe like, you know, anywhere from 26 to 28, something like that. And I'm definitely looking at them in that sort of 5th to 6th round, if you will.
Yeah, Elise at 65 right now.
Yeah.
That's, so even, lower than we have him by a good margin.
Yeah, I'd like him there. Yeah.
Eze is, my God, 92.7, just a couple above the aforementioned Pascal Gross.
Yeah, I mean, if you get him there, you're laughing, don't you?
I would say that the few serious mocks that I've participated in, they've gone really early. Probably too early for my liking. Like,
really?
Elise, like early 5th.
Yeah. I can
Eze like early 6th, and I think Elise is in danger of becoming overvalued if that trend continues, I think.
Okay.
Yep. No,
so if you're talking about, sorry to cut you off, Robbie, if you're talking about taking Elise over guys like Tielemans, McGinn, Calvert-Lewin, Cash, that's too much for you.
I think I'd take him over Tielemans.
Well, Tielemans is at 53.
I'm more than happy for people to take him there.
So, I mean, it seems he's still a value with his ADP where he's at. But yeah, like you said, in leagues with some know-how, leagues with some tactical knowledge of this game, he might become a reach.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Any other thoughts on those guys? Cool. Toddy, hit us with your mid-tier players.
I have Tielemans. We have just talked about, and I am lowest on him out of our bunch, and it is mainly because of this. I think his value came from him having some sets, in most of his value, and once he lost those mid-November, he just fell off the face of the earth. and I do think that that once he has decided, and it is the fact that he has decided not to sign a new contract, he's probably leaving Leicester. And I have no idea, Ryan. You might be able to help me with this, where that Arsenal interest is at the moment, but I haven't seen any other EPL team linked. So there is a chance, I think, that he moves abroad. Although I haven't seen anything to that effect, but I think Leicester will do a lot to get him off the books. That's why I think he's a very risky player to draft.
I would say that everything I've read is basically geared towards Arsenal waiting a little bit longer in the window to have more leverage over Leicester, given that, as you said, he hasn't re-signed a contract. So the later they wait, the better the price is going to be, because Leicester really have to get him off the books if they want to get anything for him. One thing I would say is that the prospect or the temptation to just get him for free next season means there is still a chance that he stays at Leicester and just runs his contract down.
And would you? So if he signs for Arsenal, which is currently the only possibility worth exploring, would you have him move up or down your rankings?
If it was versus him staying at Leicester and coming to Arsenal, I think he'd move down, because I don't know if he'd be nailed on. It would depend on Arteta moving to a 4-3-3 and then him being the left-sided 6. And that's kind of a bigger bet. It could happen, but it's not as guaranteed as him starting at Leicester, I would say.
Exactly, and I think,
either way, the risk is way too high.
Like the best scenario is where his ADP is, and I don't think that is very likely. Out of all the scenarios, all the possible scenarios, I don't think the scenario that has him represent value at that ADP is very likely.
That's a great point. I have him way too high. I just realized.
Yeah, mine's, I think, out of pure laziness.
Yeah, Ryan, you're ironically second highest on him. So
yeah, I'll remedy that.
Yeah, Toddy, you've absolutely skewered him at 65 in your new rankings.
Yeah. Okay, and my other guy is Emi Buendia, and it's less about the rankings and more about he is one guy I am watching preseason for. And it's not because of form, it's not because of goals, it's not because of highlight reels. It's for one specific reason. Is he being forced or tried in a lineup with Phil Coutinho in there?
Yep.
If he is, then I'm sneakily trying to get him in round 5-6ish. If he isn't, and as we close in on the start of the season, he is still being played in 11s or in situations, half matches or whatever, that do not have Coutinho in there, I'm dropping him like a fly.
Okay. Interesting.
Man, I've agonized over what to do with Buendia all summer, because he's tantalizing in round 5 with that upside, but
and I
he's
completely agree with you
if he doesn't play, and there's a really good rationale that he doesn't.
And I totally agree with everything that's been said, but when you look at the players who are going around there in ADP, and I'm not saying you should always stick to ADP. God, please don't do that. Make rankings. Go to Overthinking Football and make your own rankings. But Conor Gallagher's right there. Emile Smith-Rowe, Saeed bin Rama, like these are all players who are just after Buendia, like barely after Buendia.
Yeah, I don't want any of those guys, but there are others around that area that I would take over Buendia. It's just, it's risk. It's all risk.
Oh man, that's a tough one.
I think he's too similar to Coutinho to be able to play them both.
Okay,
And I don't know
Buendia.
why they bought them both, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's too much.
All right, Ryan, Buendia or Pascal Gross?
Buendia, but only because he's facing the same issues that Gross is in terms of rotation.
Okay. All right, that's interesting. That's a close one. I feel like that's a closer one, but
it's a similar one, yeah.
Yeah. Anybody taking Buendia over Tielemans?
I think I would, just because I wouldn't take Tielemans. I don't know what round it would have to be for me to be like, you know what? Yeah, it's time to take Yuri.
Same here. Like, I have him on value. I have him ranked 65th or whatever, but I still would probably rather punt on Buendia, or even someone like Ilkay Gundogan.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the late rounds. These are your sleepers, your hidden gems, your guys that often slip through the cracks. Some of them might not even get drafted in at all. So these are the ones that get a little bit tricky, and especially knowing when to take them. So we'll give you a little inside look into the ones that we think maybe are being overdrafted, or the ones that we're concerned about, or the ones that we really like. So this list begins with Thiago at 68, followed by Joe Linton and Souček. And then it goes all the way down to 150. This is a long list. Check out our rankings for more detailed information there. But it goes all the way down to 150 with Moises Caicedo, Ruben Neves right before him, and Fred right before him. My God, that's the state of things, really. Anyway, okay. Robbie, let's kick it to you first for this one. Who are you interested in, or who do you want to just even mention here for your late rounders?
Yeah, the one I'm going to mention, one that I think I need to highlight because he's probably a bit too high actually, is Benrahma. West Ham are looking at getting in. Obviously, Broja looks a bit more certain than Lingard at the moment. But
yeah,
they're looking to get in one, if not two, attackers, and I think Benrahma's first on the chopping block in terms of who's going to sort of lose out in that battle.
Yeah, Moyes never liked him, never really wanted him, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, here we've got him ranked 82, but I don't. Again, sorry, Joe, I don't know what his ADP is.
But have you looked at him in our new rankings? I'm wondering. I haven't yet, but I'm just curious because I know I for one dropped him like a stone in our new rankings. He is at let's see, 90. He's at 90 now.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I dropped him about 10, 20 places, I think, at least. But
sorry, take it back. His average is 98.3.
Yeah, that feels a bit more right. But because I mean, obviously, he did produce some good numbers. There's 10.3 points per start. But I don't think Moyes has ever really sold on him, to be honest. And I think it feels like he's much preferred Fornals in terms of the work rate that he can provide and things like that. And I think if Broja comes in, we've been discussing this, but I don't think he'll maybe start straight away. But there's a potential for him to start as the striker with Antonio moving to the left wing, and I think if that happens, then Fornals moves inside. But yeah, so I can't project his starts too high. So I think he's sort of one that you need to be wary about because I think there's just a lot of risks there. The
ADP, sorry, real quick, ADP of 82, basically.
Yeah, just feels a bit too high. There's a lot of other people, a lot of other players I'd take around that point. The other one I highlighted was Conor Gallagher. Now, I sort of feel like our ranks are a little bit more where I'd like to take him. It's 118, but I think his ADP is really high, like 60 in the 60s or something.
It's 82.6.
Okay, yeah. I mean, even then, I think the reason I highlight him is he sort of, in terms of his profile, he doesn't really fit in with the way Chelsea play with the back five anyway. He doesn't really fit in with the two because he's not a progressive passer in that sense. I mean, you saw what he did at Palace was basically he was that sort of advanced disruptor, and he'd try and win the ball high up the pitch and and then break an attack from that. So he'd have to really change the way he's played ever in the past to do that. And I don't think he fits in that front three, especially now that Sterling's come in with Mount. So I think where you're valuing him is his potential to move to another club and have a similar role as he did at Palace. Obviously, his second half of the season form you've got to be really wary of.
Dreadful.
But I think, around about, picks sort of 100, 110, something like that, you're starting to think, okay, well, he's worth a punt by that point.
I can't see myself drafting him this year. Oh,
No,
what about you guys?
He's D&D for me. I haven't even seen him linked really to any club, so my guess is that he just wastes away at Chelsea like so many others before him. R.I.P. Ross Barkley.
Yeah, I think we have kind of a consensus on him. Like Ryan, yourself, and DraftLad have him at around 200, and
Meaning you didn't rank him.
You didn't rank him. The rest of us have him between 100 and 130. Joe has him at 100, and I have him at 130. And then there is Genie, who has him at 67.
Genie's the worst.
Keeping him afloat.
He's the worst.
No, I love Genie. But yeah, I think we're all just coming to terms with the fact that, like, where's he gonna play? And like you said, Robbie, and I know Drafter Thoughts brought this up today in a lot of our group chats. We were talking about Gallagher. It's just like, look at his form last season. Really, like, what are we really going on here? He was miserable.
Yep.
Cool. I like it. All right, Toddy, back to you. Let's talk through some of your late rounders.
Okay, I have three late rounders who I think, by the looks of the ADP differences and by the looks of the differences in our own rankings, I will end up having on my roster in most of my leagues. One is my number one love for all eternity is Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, who I think is the future of the Leicester midfield and the present of the Leicester midfield, and heir apparent to the Tielemans, who was a good fantasy player. Not the one that we are drafting yet.
Anakin Skywalker.
Exactly. not the one that we are not drafting at 65, although we are ranking at 65. So that he's my one late round punt. He's definitely someone you wanna pick up to solidify your midfield. He will start most games. He will get some sets, but his floor will be quite low. He'll be one of those guys that you can trot out if you have a roster with a lot of lottery tickets. The second guy is Stu Armstrong, who I think is being mistreated as an injury risk, which he prior to last season has not been, and I do think that he's not there's not much debate about him being the second most talented player on that Saints roster behind JWP. So I think he'll have a.
Didn't you previously tell us that was Che Adams?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you did. This is fake news.
No, I think Che Adams.
Previously, as in like 15 minutes before.
I did say Che Adams will be the second highest scorer.
Oh,
I'm saying Stu Armstrong is the second most talented player.
So talent doesn't always then translate into fantasy points, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. That's my point too.
Yeah. Yep, that's my second shout. And my third and most obscure shout is the computer himself.
No.
No rebooting the computer. No.
It is Enoch Mwepu. I think he will be nailed and as nailed on as one can be in the Brighton midfield or a Brighton lineup, but I think he will be in Brighton's best 11 for the season, and I think he will start enough games to be relevant. And he has amazing skill set. He is shown in the limited availability or limited amount of starts that he got that he can get into the box. He can score the goals. He can get in on the attacking returns. I'm really excited about him.
All right.
Can I?
Any of those guys that you guys want to go ahead?
I'd like guess what his points per start is.
Mwepu?
3.5.
11.8
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
off 12 starts. That
There's life in this old dog yet.
Yeah, I mean, it surprised me when I saw it.
You're not drafting somebody that starts 12 games. You're just not.
He's not starting 12 games. He's starting. I worry for Ryan because if I say a number high enough, he will on the pod.
I'll break out the wallet right now.
Yeah, you will break out the wallet right now. And just for listeners to know, we have a document that details all our running bets within.
Take a screenshot one of these days and post it on.
Yeah.
Within the Draft Society, and unsurprisingly to our listeners who have been with us for a long time, Ryan is involved in most of them. There was
Us two are 3 of 4.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other ones with Genie found regarding Mount, of course.
Yeah. So I'm not going to go out on a limb on projecting starts.
Well, Evan's done that.
Yeah, Evan's
what does
done
he
that.
project?
Draftlet says 23.
23.
Mm-hmm.
23 starts at a very modest 8.8 points per start.
Modest.
That gets you around 200 points.
So let's play this out. So you draft him, and game week 5 he still hasn't started. What are you doing? Burning that roster spot, or are you dropping him?
Oh, I'm dropping him before.
Okay, then what are we talking about?
He's a punt. Like
Yeah, you're getting him
round 15, 16. Like
you're getting him at ADP 135.
Fair enough.
Exactly. And one sec, I will give you Brighton's first 6 fixtures: United, Newcastle, West Ham, Leeds, Fulham, Leicester.
The first 3 are tricky, but yeah, I like
that.
the Leeds Fulham.
That is the third most favorable fixture set for midfielders in that 6-game span.
All right, you're drafting today. It is I can't do the math, but let's say it's the 12th round, 10th round, whatever. Mwepu's on the board. You can have him or Johnny.
I'm taking Mwepu all day.
I think at that point I probably would too.
Okay. You can have him or Thomas Partey.
Oh God, you bastard! Obviously, Partey.
What about Sessegnon?
Depends if I needed a defensive punt
Player.
Yeah.
Jacob Ramsey?
Ooh.
Okay, so this is the level. It's
Yeah.
fine. It's not bad for a punt, Toddy. I like it.
Yeah.
Get
like
the
it.
computer soaring.
I just I know he's just going to be on your wire.
Reboot
in game week
the computer.
Game week 4.
Exactly.
All right, Ryan.
Can I quickly retort? I'm curious about KDH because I too like him as a player in real life. He passes the eye test, looks lively, blah 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 on sets. Why doesn't he score more? He had enough starts last season to show you what she can do. He had a couple games with goals that were good, fair enough. But like, I didn't see much over like a 6-point average, other than those games where he scored.
I'm glad you asked.
Get the appeal, but like I also don't.
Here we go.
I'm glad you asked. With lesser injuries, and especially with Ndidi sitting out essentially what was the second half of the season, all Leicester midfield assets who had anything to do with stuff that you do on your own half of the field, so not Madison or Barnes or whoever, needed to take a much bigger role in defending. With Ndidi there, he will have a chance to roam forward. There is an interesting aspect to Leicester assets, and I go into this in some detail in my 2 Leicester articles. A lot of value comes from what formation they use, and it all originates.
What's your ideal one for KDH?
For KDH, I would say the ideal one is the 5-3-2 with wing backs. So whatever you want to call it, 3-5-2, 5-3-2, whatever.
Yeah.
So the one with wing backs, because that there the wing backs will provide the width, and he will have Madison as the furthest forward player in that 3, and then he can step into the left half space with James Justin providing the width there, and he can step into that area in front of the penalty box and either play in one of the 2 forwards or just whip Thierry Henry-esque curl shot.
All right, Toddy. Points per start, over under 8.5. Will you take the over? I'll take the under. Loser buys the bar tab.
I'm probably not taking the over in that.
Oh, why are you drafting him then? No way. No way. Not drafting him at where he's at. Absolutely not.
Why?
He's one ahead of Stuart Armstrong.
He's got 7 points per start.
Yeah.
I could stream better.
Oh, for draft ADP.
ADP. Oh, I'm not drafting him at ADP.
Okay.
I've seen him go in the 8th round, I think, in every
110
decent draft I've seen.
So it sounds to me like, Toddy, like where you're comfortable taking him, you're not going to get in there anyway. And let some other sucker take those 7.6 points per start.
Possibly.
But the Thierry Henry whipped in balls.
Exactly.
FOMO.
All right. Well, that was about to be my first bet, but that's fine.
Oh
okay.
Man, yeah, we got to get Joe in there. Oh, come on, Toddy. At least to get Joe some skin in the game.
If you give me 8.
Ooh.
No way.
8.0. I'll take the bet for 8.0.
8.3.
Oh God.
I'll take that bet.
Yes.
All right, I'm putting it in.
Yes.
What are the stakes?
I love it. It's bar tab.
Okay.
I'm not taking the bar tab in Iceland. No way I'm taking the bar tab.
We've been told we won't have a bar tab in Iceland, so that's fine.
That's fair.
Our friends in Iceland have told us we're going to be well looked out for, which we love them. All right. Anyway, Ryan, you were going to tell us about your late round flyers, your sleepers.
Yeah. But I'm glad I didn't because this came from all of that.
These were going to be short episodes.
Yeah, whatever. So my two are a bit on the nose. So the top of the list of the area of the draft you mentioned is Thiago. The reason I mention him is because we all know his injury issues and all that, blah, blah, blah. He starts to get attractive after round 5, which is where you start to see the kind of dip off in mids where you're thinking about the upside of Buendia and the allure of 7 points per start from KDH. Thiago's upside is a lot higher. I've seen him preseason. He looks like he's actually spent it in the gym. He's looking pretty fit. I am under no illusion that he's going to start 35 games, but even if he starts the first 3 or 4 and he balls out, you get all of those points. Plus, I think you can trade him on a high. So he's one of those high upside guys that you take because of that and just the off chance that he actually does stay fit. I think he's got more upside than anybody else in this category. So I'll throw him out there.
Okay.
And then the other one is fantasy royalty, Sir Joseph of Lintonshire. Joe Linton, I think he's nailed on. I've seen people talk about concerns about his playing time. I don't see it. I think Eddie Howe transformed him into this midfield beast, and I think he'd be silly to turn back on this project. And I just think he's a solid kind of set and forget mid 3, mid 4 that'll likely get you 8 to 10 every week, with the upside of some of those games where he bags a goal or two. So I think he becomes pretty attractive after around like 8-ish. So those are my two.
Okay. Never going to argue with Joe Linton, although you got to temper expectations. You're looking at 10. You're hoping for 10.
Yeah.
And if it's a goal, you tear your shirt off, run around the house.
Yeah, and we did a few times last season.
Yeah, we absolutely did. Unashamedly. Toddy or Robbie, anything to add on those?
No, good to go.
Yeah, not really. Just
okay.
Thiago's obviously not really started more than 20 games for a long time. So
I did all of that precursor.
Yeah,
a long time.
So But,
interestingly,
sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Interestingly, on Thiago, he's got an ADP of 75.8, and in our rankings that will be unveiled shortly, version 2 rankings, we have him at 65.6 average, but that is also taking into account Genie's ranking of 49. So,
yeah. No, I think, leaving that injury issue aside, I think Klopp has seemed to have got him a lot fitter in the second half of the season. So
thank you.
Yeah, I think you can. Yeah, so you never know. He might do a Matip and stay fit all season.
And that early schedule, like I said, if he starts the first couple and balls out, you can trade him on a pretty damn high.
That's a great point, actually, because no one says you have to keep him all season. Mm-hmm. And if you think he's going to perform right away, then just, pull the trigger, trade him out for someone who you think has better rest of season value. I love that.
Yeah. And I think we discussed it before, the first 5 game weeks, there's no Europe or anything. So it's normally just, 1 game a week. And, for Thiago, he should be able to handle it.
Yeah. Should be.
Big if.
Should be. All right. Let's wrap her up, boys. We're going to end it with one player that you believe is overvalued, overhyped, or even do not draft territory for you in this midfield, just any of the midfielders at this point. We're opening it up. So any of them that you are shying away from, aside from, we've already talked about Tielemans ad nauseum, but any other ones aside from that? Toddy, we'll start with you.
I will go with one rank I agree with Genie on is Mason Mount. Although even since we have started planning for this pod, he has come down a bit in his ranking. He was at 13 when I looked when I was planning for the pod. So obviously, end of round 2, I'm okay to look at him, but at his current valuation, I'm not drafting him. Others, essentially all of the fully defensive midfielders, so Bentancur, Bissouma, Fred, Neves, Conte.
You're not including Rodri in that, right?
I see his value, but I'm not actively looking for him in drafts.
Okay.
So he's not do not draft, but I think and I do not know his ADP, but I would suspect it's much higher than where I would draft him.
Okay, fair enough.
His ADP is
76.8.
So, yeah, that's higher than where I would have him.
One higher than Buendia.
Yeah. I'm not touching him there.
Okay. Ryan, how about your overvalued, overhyped players or player?
Preview of the Do Not Draft article that will be dropping, I want to say next week, maybe?
Yep.
Keep me honest.
I think so.
Emil Smith-Rowe, I love the guy, but he talk about overperforming his XG. I think he got 10 goals last season. Yeah. I can't see him topping that. Plus, he can't stay fit, and Martinelli is above him. And if they get another winger, then he's third choice at left wing. The only chance I kind of would give him to see some meaningful minutes in the Prim this season would be if they do shift to a 4-3-3, and then he becomes more of that central midfield role, which I think suits him better than a winger. To be honest, he's not a proper winger, and so I wish him the best, but I just don't see him as a viable fantasy asset, particularly in round 7, 8-ish where he's going, and that seems pretty damning given that it's fairly late. But even at that stage, there's so many other players that I'd much rather have. So.
Don't even like him as a Martinelli handcuff.
I just don't think you can get him late enough for it to be worth it. To be honest, are you really going to spend a 7th or 8th round pick on a handcuff?
There's so many good defenders there.
Can I ask Ryan about a potential not do not draft but do not draft where he's going? What do you think about Martinelli and his ADP?
I think it's way too high. I put him kind of mid 5th, early 6th before the summer started. It's not because I don't love the player. I think he's fantastic, but I'm worried about another high profile winger coming in and supplanting him at left wing. And I've seen him go early 4th round, and I just think that's kind of madness. I'd be fine taking him late 4th, early 5th based on the upside, but he's one that I worry about.
That's where that was mainly my question, because that's where we have him. Like, our consensus rank is Genie 35, Joe 31, myself 43, Ryan 40, Robbie 37, Gavin 37, and DraftLad 45. So that's 30. That has 37 written all over it.
I'll keep him there until somebody comes in.
Yeah, I worry that you'd be kicking yourself if you take him in the 4th round and somebody does come in. But no, I'm just worried about it. I think he's a great player, a great fantasy asset. And that keeps me a little concerned and not as excited about taking him in at that stage of the draft as I would be if the window was closed.
Yep. Okay.
We got to go with the information we have now. right?
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's such a high draft pick that with that kind of cloud looming, it's just something that extra to take into consideration.
I also just love him.
Oh no, he's fantastic. I have his jersey, so it pains me to say it.
Fair enough. All right, Robbie, close us out.
Sure. I'm also going to include the player I've included in the Do Not Draft article.
Nice.
And this one is Ruben Neves. Although maybe not quite so consequential in terms of the draft positions the other boys were talking about. His current ADP is at 93, which I think is absolutely bonkers, to be honest. We put together a few mocks earlier in the season, and I've seen him go even higher than that.
What?
Yeah. So I just have no idea what people are actually looking at, and I mean I did a little bit of digging, and if you actually take his spell between game week 23 and 29 last season, he had 11. Yeah, I know it's quite specific.
5-game period.
Yeah. He had 11.9 points per start. However, the rest of the time, if outside of that, I think he was only on about 5.9 points per start. So,
wow.
Yeah, what you get with him, and the problem is you're in this sort of quandary with him where he's not really sort of set and forget mid, but he doesn't really have much upside because you're waiting on those crazy goals, that he pulls, those long range goals that he pulls out of nowhere, a couple of times a year.
Unpredictable.
Exactly. So, but you're going to want to start him every game to try and catch them. So it's sort of this, and his ghost and his floor isn't high enough to warrant, sticking him in every week. So, yeah, I mean, maybe you punt on him very, very late in the draft and you hope he starts on a hot spell and trade him out on a high. But, I don't see why you would be even considering him in the first half of the draft.
Totally agree. Yeah, could not agree more. Any other little tidbits to throw in, guys, before we close her out? Cool. And that will wrap it up for this particular episode. Thank you for tuning in to this positional discussion series. We really do appreciate it. I say it all the time. Community, you're the reason we do this. You were the reason why we started the site. You're it. So we love you. Thank you so much for supporting us, for tuning into the podcast, reading the articles, engaging us on Twitter, just all the things. You're the best. So if you have any questions, as we always say, start a dialogue, start a conversation. Add us. We will retweet you if you have questions about how your draft went. You want us to rate your draft. You want the community to rate your draft because we're not the only ones who know things here. Let's be honest. Go ahead and tag us. We will gladly retweet that. If you want to take part in a mock draft, get at us. We will set you up with somebody who can, probably Chris, let's be honest. It's always Chris who's doing mock drafts. Anyway, we'll set you up with somebody who can help you with mock drafts. If you have trade advice, if you need player valuation assistance, or you just have a player you don't quite understand why we're ranking a certain way or why the community feels a certain way about a certain player, let us know. Let's have a conversation about it. Let's get it out there because I love to have my mind changed too. There can be sometimes groupthink that goes on in certain aspects of the draft community. So let's make sure we're not, challenging each other in a mean-spirited way, but challenging each other in a way that really just makes it so that we're all fleshing out our opinions to the greatest degree, to where we actually have data, or we actually have valid predictions to back up the things that we're saying. So we're all going into the drafts as best we can. And then those lonely suckers that are not on Twitter joining this community that is so supportive and wonderful, they obviously are going to be the ones who lose out and just get absolutely dominated in their drafts. So anyway, hit us up on Twitter if you have any questions. Otherwise, again, thank you for listening. Head over to thedraftsociety.com. You'll see the draft kit there and everything we've got to offer. Again, thank you for your support, community. Again, we love you.